Hillary Clinton, the multi-election loser and human equivalent of the Christmas fruitcake nobody wants, is offering advice to Sleepy Joe ahead of tomorrow night's CNN presidential debate. This ought to be good. The show featuring Will Cain starts in just a minute, but first a word from our sponsor. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? Well, I recently saw a video he made and I was shocked because he's in his 80s. He's still kicking butt and working out and he's staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. But he did this by making just one change. And he says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Well, Chuck made a special video that explains everything, so make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Tommy, because it will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Tommy. You won't believe how simple it is. So Hillary Clinton keeps resurrecting her failed political career in a desperate attempt to stay in the headlines. She chases the spotlight like a backyard moth circles a lamppost on a hot, sticky summer night. That's Hillary. So I hate to give her more attention, but I couldn't pass this one up because she's written an op-ed in the New York Times titled, "I've debated Trump and Biden. Here's what I'm watching for." And given she's a multi-time loser, I hope Joe Biden clings to her every word of advice. That should go well. In her nauseatingly self-centered and self-indulgent op-ed, Hillary hearkened back to her debates with Donald Trump, called him a bully, and claimed his style is to, quote, start with nonsense and digress into blather. Blather? Blather? Blather me this, Hillary.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
We'll teach Donald Trump a valuable lesson. Don't mess with the women in America unless you want to get the benefit.
I'm worried about the war. Are you worried about the war?
I would like to see Hillary Clinton caption that blather. But old Hillary also asserted in her article that the expectations of Trump are so low, which is an obvious lie and a gaslight. She also claimed Joe has the disadvantage because as the sitting president, he has so many duties and responsibilities that distract from his debate preparation. Really? He's been holed up in his Camp David cocoon for a damn week. But what did you expect from a Hillary Clinton op-ed? The truth? We'd sooner find ice in hell or an attractive person at a woman's march. But what happens tomorrow night is still up in the air. What Joe will get is also up in the air and likely up in the IV drip as we speak. But what about Donald Trump?
How should I handle him? Should I be tough and nasty? Or should I be, she'd say no. Should I be tough and nasty and just say you're the worst president in history? Or should I be nice and calm and let him speak?
So I personally think that Donald Trump has to be as presidential as he possibly can. But let me bring in my pal and co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend and the Will Cain Show, Will Cain. Will, it's great to have you.
Thanks, Tommy.
All right, so I want to start off with your predictions for the CNN presidential debate tomorrow night. We know that Joe Biden will not agree to a drug test, as Donald Trump had asked for. But do you think we're going to get Sleepy Joe, Jacked Up Joe, a combination of both of those things, or what Joe are we going to get?
We will get Jacked Up Joe. And the great question, as you point out, is why will we get Jacked Up Joe? We'll get Jacked Up Joe because we have historical precedent for that version of Joe Biden. We'll get it because we've seen it at the State of the Union, and we've seen it at various occasions where he's got a ton of energy. The question then will be, why? Is it just because he got 14 hours sleep, Tommy, or does he need to submit to a drug test? Now, how does Donald Trump deal with that? I think is a fascinating question. I think if he kind of takes that aggressive tone, Tommy, then he can rattle Joe in some ways and make him a little more tired and expose him to what lies underneath Jacked Up Joe. But I agree with you. I think the option for me would be the second option that Donald Trump gives to the audience, which is to be nice, to be presidential, to let everything run its course, to let everybody pick Donald Trump. this time because they are rejecting Joe Biden.
Well, I think that if Donald Trump is nasty or he kind of pokes at Joe, I think it's going to be the same thing as 2020 when he did that. People are going to feel sorry for Joe Biden. They're going to feel that Donald Trump is a bully. The independents out there that don't like the way Trump acts are going to say, see, look, this guy is bombastic. He's aggressive. I think it's better to just let Joe talk and make Joe talk as much as possible, because there's only so long that the drugs can work. I don't know how long whatever he's going to be on, if he is on something allegedly, I don't know how long that takes to wear off, but I think the longer you let Joe talk, the more he's going to come down from whatever it is, even if it's just good old-fashioned adrenaline. So I think Donald Trump just lets him talk. But I'm also wondering, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that this is a CNN debate, the fact that both moderators obviously are not pro-Trump in any way, shape, or form. But are they going to actively fact-check both men? If Joe Biden starts saying something about the laptop being Russian disinformation, or he starts talking about cannibals eating his uncle, are the CNN moderators, is there any chance that they jump in and dogpile on Joe Biden? Because I think we know they're going to do it to Trump, but do they do it to Joe?
No. And here's another great example that is likely to make an appearance in the CNN presidential debate. And that is Joe Biden famously, Tommy, as you know, said the reason that he ran for president, at least in part, was because of the horrible things he saw in Charlottesville and the response by Donald Trump, where he reportedly called Nazis and white nationalists very fine people. Well, this week, at least one quote unquote self-styled fact-checking organization, Snopes, admitted 7 years later, weirdly, that was a hoax. That's fake. He did not call Nazis and white nationalists very fine people. And anybody with just a broadband connection that allowed them to watch that clip beyond 30 seconds would have known for the past 7 years the reality of that hoax. But now the bubble that is the mainstream media was pierced the slightest little bit with Snopes. So will Joe Biden reissue that hoax as the justification for why he ran for president? And if he does, would he be fact-checked in that moment by CNN? My guess and answer to you is no. The fact checks will go one way. And I just have to, again, history is my precedent. I mean, those two moderators are not moderate. They are not between the two candidates. They are not objective. And on most occasions, they don't even strive to be objective. So I'm not going to believe it out of the blue they've turned some new leaf, that they're going to be objective. And if they are, Tommy, I'll ask the same question that I'm asking about why Snopes 7 years later decided to tell the truth. If they are, I'm going to really be asking the question as to why, because it would be a departure in behavior. And you'd have to say, Joe Biden no longer has cover.
Yeah.
And now, with a month before the convention, he's swimming naked. He's got no mainstream media cover. Be prepared for the change.
Be prepared for, as I have long maintained, Gavin Newsom, who will be in the spin room tomorrow night as well, being a good little Biden surrogate. So I wish we had more time to talk about that aspect of all this. But I want to ask your take on this because I'm curious. We know that January 6th is going to come up. It's a liberal wet dream. They love January 6th. Joe Biden sometimes refers to it as June 6th, July 6th. I don't even know if he knows what January 6th actually is anymore. But Donald Trump's undoubtedly going to be asked about it. How does Donald Trump navigate that question?
That's a good question. You're exactly right. There is no doubt they're going to bring up January 6th. I think that, and it still promises in many ways, Tommy, to be the issue that could undermine a re-election for Donald Trump. And here's why. There are many people rightfully on the right that will want him to talk about the way that so many people currently being prosecuted for January 6th have been handled. I mean, there's a Supreme Court case we're expecting right now in the next day or so a decision on whether or not they can be rightfully and constitutionally charged with obstructing an official proceeding. So that's a legitimate issue, the way the people involved in January 6th have been handled by the Department of Justice. But on the other hand, I do think that the independent swing voter doesn't, and this is inappropriate, but doesn't care about the details. They see January 6th as this big stain on American history. And I don't even know if it matters to them whether or not you call it an insurrection or a riot. They just don't want anything connected to January 6th. So can Donald Trump distance himself from something he needs to win swing voters, while also holding the appropriately principled position of defending the people on January 6th who need defense. Because I don't think it's right the way they've been handled under the Department of Justice. So that's going to be probably the most substantively difficult issue he will have to handle. The other one is one you and I have discussed here, which is abortion. And I think he's prepared for that, by the way. I just listened to him for an hour on the All In podcast. And I think he is prepared with his answer. Hey, would you support a national abortion ban? What do you want to do in the future? I think he is prepared to address that issue, which also threatens to kind of tip the balance for him on the needed independent swing voter.
Yeah, on the January 6th thing, I think that the best thing that he could do is to say that it was a bad day that got very out of hand and that he did, in fact, put out there that peacefully and patriotically, and it got way out of control. I think he needs to acknowledge that. I think it goes against every bone in his body to acknowledge that. But if he talks about a rigged election, or he talks about anything being rigged, or he says anything they can get a soundbite out of, he's going to lose independents who are waiting for him to answer this question. He's going to have to humble himself with that one. And I know that some people don't want him to do that, but those people are going to vote for him regardless. So I think he really needs to speak to the people that are horrified by January 6th, and he needs to actually put Democrats on their heels when it comes to saving democracy, and he needs to acknowledge it was a bad day. On the abortion thing, I think when he's asked if he'd support a national abortion ban, I think he says, no, that's not where the country is. And I know that there are pro-lifers that are going to be very angry with that, but quite frankly, it's not where the country is. And I've heard people say that he needs to acknowledge that they don't have enough of a majority to make it happen. But to me, that then again undermines elections for senators and representatives. I don't think you say, oh, we don't have enough of a majority to make it happen. Then you're just telling people, okay, don't vote for a Republican senator then, because then they would have a majority and they could make it happen. I think we should have plenty in the Senate. I think we want to aim for that. I think you just say no, because that's not where the American people are, which is the truth. But do you think that that's going to anger the pro-lifers enough that they're not going to vote for him?
I think unless he says different things in different forums, I think he will say, I'm not going to support a national abortion ban. I think that's what he will say because I've heard him say it, for example, on the All In podcast. As to the January 6th thing, he explicitly said, I will not support a national abortion ban, or has he kind of skated around it? He said definitively. No, well, the only thing I want to make sure that I'm characterizing it correctly is the word support. So I don't know if it was push, sign, or support, sign. I don't know exactly what the verb was, but it was definitely, I will not be leading up the charge for a national abortion ban. You know, on the January 6th thing, I think you have an interesting way. I like the way that you offer him advice, which is to turn the phrase on its head, the defending democracy phrase, right? Because January 6th is the event that is the foundation of their whole line of defending democracy. It's to paint what happened on January 6th as the moment that we teetered on the loss of democracy. And I think you're right. I would take that and flip it on its head, because everything Democrats have done to destroy our republic in defense of our democracy. I would talk about packing the Supreme Court, undermining the Supreme Court. I would talk about the First Amendment. I would talk about censorship. I would talk about the Ministry of Disinformation. I would talk about all the ways, and those are just a few. You could have a laundry list, 20 entries long on the ways that the Democratic Party has undermined our republic under the banner of defending democracy.
Well, I think first, though, he has to say January 6th was a horrible day for our country. I am interested in defending our republic. However, what this guy has done and this Democrat Party has done, trying to keep me off the ballot, trying to keep me in a courtroom, weaponizing the Justice Department against me, and then all the other things you mentioned in terms of censoring the American people with that BS Supreme Court decision we got today that says the government can still censor us. I believe that he first needs to acknowledge January 6th as being bad, and then say, look at all these things these people are doing. I think that he's just got to, because I haven't heard him really fully denounce what happened on January 6th yet. And I think that he just has to do it. And I don't think he wants to, but I think to disarm them entirely, just do it. That's just my take on it. I think he's got to say something about it.
Well, I think he does a good job of if he errs in any direction, it's the direction that you're talking about, which is not to admit to anything that has any sense of negativity attached to him. The best illustration of that is how he answers questions about Fauci. He never fully distances himself or throws Fauci under the bus. And that's in part because he understands the connection between himself and Fauci, that time period at the beginning of COVID. He understands the connection between January 6th and himself. So he has to, and he will thread the needle of how far can I go? Because I do think that he's instinct, and I don't think he's wrong, is you give an inch and they take a mile, right? So if you admit mistake, they see it as a sign of weakness. So he's going to have to find a way to thread that.
Or humility. I think
he lives in a world. I think he lives in a new world, Tommy. And look, I understand what you're getting at, and I appreciate it. And it's statesmanship, and it's also integrity, and it's respect. But you also live in a world where politics has turned into a zero-sum game, and that is you vanquish your opponent. And in the middle of that, and I don't think there is anything that has given us reason to believe that you would disarm them. They would only turn it into a weapon. But
Will, can you imagine the headline though? Because they want him to say something about January 6th. Though if he says, and I'm not saying that he says, I apologize for January 6th. I think you say January 6th was an awful day for everyone in this country, because that's true. And then what is CNN going to say? Donald Trump says January 6th was a bad day.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's a win. That's a win because you're not saying I led an insurrection. You're not saying that, we're ever going to know the truth about January 6th. I just think you say it was a bad day for our country. And then I think you disarm them, because then he's acknowledging it was a bad day without taking full accountability or admitting any fault.
So here's the thing. It's time for that story to go. And I think I speak for most Americans. It's like we have other things to deal with, bigger issues to talk about. And this is the issue that CNN or MSNBC or the Democrats want to keep re-injecting lifeblood into. That's a zombie walking around our political landscape. This is the most important thing for them to bring up because they think it's the sign of weakness for Donald Trump. So the question is, and maybe you're right, Tommy, and I think you might be right, probably right, that this might be the path to putting it in our past. But I do think that's the question. He doesn't want to spend 30 minutes in this debate talking about January 6th. And by the way, I don't think the country wants to spend 30 minutes in this debate talking about January 6th. I don't think anyone does, except for those who have a vested interest in a win for Joe Biden. And it's not just those that want a vested interest in Donald Trump winning that want to put it in our past. It's like it so clearly is a political piñata. It so clearly is your Frankenstein. It so clearly is the only issue that matters. And it's in the way of actually dealing with anything that does matter to America.
Yeah, I don't think most Americans care about it, but I think this debate and this race is going to be focused on those independents. And for some reason, the way that he talks about it still bothers them. And I don't even think January 6th, I don't think they wake up every day thinking about January 6th, but I still think that there are some Republican-minded folks out there that don't like Donald Trump and they don't like the way he talks about things. So I think even just a small little dose of humility when it comes to that would ease their concerns. But I want to move on past politics now, because we're going to be talking about politics for the next, 130 days, forever. So I want to turn to something that's a little bit more pop culture-esque, maybe also controversial for some folks out there. And that's the giant age gap between Bill Belichick and his girlfriend. It's an age gap that's actually represents how many years you've been alive, Will, is the age gap between these two. It's about, I believe, 47 or 48 years. So that's the age gap there. Their age gap is almost double how long this girl has been alive. And I'm wondering if you think this is a real relationship, maybe a kindred spirits, or if you think this is about something else. So
he's 74 and she is 29.
I think she's 72, or he's 72, I believe. And I believe she's 24, 23.
Oh my. She's 24, 23. Well, it violates the rule, Tommy. There's a rule. And it's a rule that survived the test of time. It's not a modern day invention. It's a rule that every man knows, I think, or should know. I even think it's a rule that goes back to some kind of Muslim edict. I don't know. I think you can probably find this rule in every major religion and civilization for at least the last couple of centuries. And that is half plus 7. You are allowed to date half plus 7 of your age. So by that calculus, he's way, way under. So that would put him, let's see, 72 would be, what is that? 36 plus 7 puts him at 43. That's the low end he can date. 43.
well,
and if you think about it, I think the rule makes a lot of sense. Like, what does he have in common with a 24-year-old? I mean, besides one thing, which, by the way, they don't have in common. Only he has in common, because we're not going to pretend that she has it in common. That is one particular attraction. They don't. There's nothing for them to talk about. They don't laugh at the same jokes. They haven't watched the same movies. They haven't read the same books. They don't have the same life experiences or anything to say, oh, remember when this happened? Or remember this? Remember, by the way, remember when Superbad came out? He can say that, and she doesn't even know what that is, right?
Exactly.
But a 43-year-old, yeah. I mean, he could have a dinner with a 43-year-old, and they could have some conversation.
I just think this happens a lot. I am 31 and I couldn't date a 24-year-old. I would have nothing in common with a 24-year-old. Like, I just cannot imagine being that old. And I can't imagine thinking that it's about anything other than, on the one side, money, and on the other side, having like a hot young girlfriend. So that to me is...
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about money. Good point.
Yeah,
so
you forgot about money? That small little thing?
Well, I was thinking about it from his perspective.
But what about from
right.
hers? I mean, what does she get out of this? She gets out of this,
right.
what, money, fame? I don't know. Something
By
like
the way,
that.
I don't know what the corresponding rule is for women. Like, that's a rule for guys, half plus 7. I don't know what the corresponding rule is for women.
For me, I don't even think there's a rule. I just think, like, if it's obvious that it's not about the actual relationship and it's other variables, then it's probably not the best idea. But I only have you for a couple more minutes. I know you have to go. So I have to ask you about another phenomenon, because you and I have talked about flights a lot. So there's a new trend in flights, and that is people who, what's called raw-dogging their flights, which means...
Careful.
Yeah. They don't listen to music. They don't watch movies. They don't sleep. They just simply stare forward and just complete the flight, just bare bones, nothing. So I'm wondering if you understand the trend, if you think this is a good idea, if you've ever done it. What's your thought?
Okay, so first, it reminds me of Putty in Seinfeld. You're probably too young to remember this from the 90s. Elaine's dating Putty. He's the guy that, like, big New Jersey Devils fan, face paint. You would totally hate him, Tommy. And I don't want to do too much about this, because perhaps the most viral thing on my Instagram that I've ever experienced is you making the argument that men shouldn't wear jerseys. I still to this day get comments on that video, and I need to mute it because it's too much. It's too much. A lot of dudes out there really upset with Tomi Lahren about the fact that she thinks dudes shouldn't wear jerseys. But Putty wore a jersey. He face painted, and then Elaine's dating him, and he gets on an airplane and he just starts staring at the back of his seat. And she's like, "You got a magazine? You got any music?" He's like, "No, I'm good. I'm good." She's like, "What are you going to do? You going to sleep?" He's like, "No, I'm good." He just stares at the back of the seat. And now young dudes have turned this into a thing. Okay, they're calling it raw dogging. And I've never done it, Tommy, and I'm on an airplane way too often, every week. But here's the thing. I kind of like get it. I see what these young guys are doing. I like, there was a time when you got on an airplane and they didn't have internet service, and you're like, wow, I feel disconnected. This is nice. I think this is almost like monkish. It's almost like meditation for these young guys. I'm done watching stuff. I know you're on an airplane a lot, Tommy. I've watched everything. I'm watched out. So I'm gone back to trying to read more books, and I feel way better at the end of a flight. Maybe I just need to stare into nothing or at the flight map.
I try to sleep if I can. I have about 30 more seconds left with you, because I know you have to go do something else. I'll probably push it for like a minute, because I'm just going to steal a minute from you. But I do want to go back to the comments on that. There are a lot of haters out there hating on my very real and very logical take here. Now, I have to correct you. I have to Snopes you. I didn't say men can't wear jerseys. I said you can't wear another man's last name across your back if you're, I think, over the age of 18. I don't
Tommy,
think that you can
you
wear
know what the
another man's
comments are
name on
saying.
your. I know. The comments. Well, they're very fragile men that are commenting.
They're saying
on
things
that.
like, "Does Tommy wear Chanel? Does she wear Louis Vuitton? You're wearing branding."
But women can. Let's acknowledge that there's a difference between men and women. If a woman wears another woman's name, that's fine. I'm saying men. I'm saying it's emasculating to another man. Men and women
You're
are
leaning
different.
in.
Men and
You're
women
leaning
are
in.
different, and we know that. But wearing another man's name on your back, to me, is emasculating. And I think you actually agree with me, but you don't want to trigger these men.
No, I'm not. I'm not afraid. I'm not beta. I'm not afraid of these men. No, I'm old. I'm full of wisdom. So here's the arc, Tommy. When I was young, absolutely, I would have worn a jersey with the dude's name on the back. I'd say in my late 20s and into my 30s, I held your opinion. It's emasculating. Now, Tommy, I'm in my late 40s, and I have arrived at I don't care. I have arrived at I don't care what you think. I don't care. I'm having fun, and I've leaned into, and my friends would make fun of me on this, by the way. I have leaned into sports is fun for me, and I'm going to go all the way fun. And if you think it's not you, the proverbial you, if you think it's beta, I don't care. I think I'm just gotten old, and I'm going to wring it out of it what it's about. It's about fun. So yeah,
You're right. It is about
I got a
fun.
jersey. I got a jersey that says Doncic.
So I'm telling you, so like anybody can do whatever they want to do. So I don't think that anybody should be robbed of their personal joy. But for me, it's kind of like, I'll give you like maybe a comparison. I know you got to go. But the comparison I would give you is this. I think people can wear masks. I see people wearing masks because they're scared of COVID or whatever. And I look at them like, you can wear a mask. I'm not going to tell you can't. If that's what makes you feel good, knock yourself out. But it's the same thing with men with other man's names on their jersey. Like, I look at them and I'm like, oh, like that was an interesting choice. You're just saying like this man is better than me. I look at the men's jersey on the name on the back of the jersey and a grown man, and I think the same thing as the maskers. And that's just my personal connection with it.
Here's what I think. I posted the other day. I sent you a note from the Dallas Stars playoff game. A lot of beta dudes, a lot of jerseys in the stands. By the way, I think there's also a difference between wearing it to a stadium and just like wearing it out one day.
There's a little bit of leeway there. Yeah.
My prediction is Tommy. How old did you say you were? 30 what?
I'm 31.
You're so young, Tommy. My prediction is Tommy in, I don't know how many years it's going to take, but you're going to change your opinion on this.
Of men wearing it? No. I will never change my opinion of that because I think it's emasculating for men to wear. It's kind of like putting another man's name like on the doormat in front of your house. Like the so-and-so's last name, like it's their house. Like, no, if you're not going to put it on your doorstep, you shouldn't put it on your damn back.
I'm looking to see what I have any men's names around me. By the way, my camera shot to join the Tomi Lahren is Fearless show today was totally off when I started. It's not in my normal lockdown camera. And I had to adjust at the beginning of our interview. And I realized I love this shot. It's got my Texas flags in the shot. But no dudes names.
And I know you have a meeting right now, but I just want to ask you, are you a Texas A&M fan?
No, I'm a Longhorn fan. That flag is right there.
No, but I mean, because we just had, we do the Tennessee-Texas thing, and Tennessee beat Texas A&M the other night in the championship. I'm just wondering if you're sour about that at all, or if you're on the Tennessee, in fact, you're excited about Tennessee.
There's a intrafamilial battle in Texas right now because I don't know if you kept up with this part of the story, but literally the day after Tennessee beat Texas A&M in the College World Series, Texas, the Longhorns, stole A&M's coach. So they lost the World Series and they lost their coach in the matter of 24 hours. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah, no love lost between the Aggies and Longhorns.
There we go. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I know you got to go. Can't wait to trigger more people when I cut this segment up and just reaffirm my position.
Don't do it, Tommy. I'm going to have to mute it. The comments are going to be out of control.
I thought you didn't care what people think, Will. You just told me you didn't care what people think.
It's just like, I don't care that Niagara Falls is water. It's just a lot of water.
Yeah, I truly don't care what people think. I love triggering them. Thank you for joining me. I'll talk to you soon. I'll bring up some more controversial topics next time we talk.
All right. See you, Tommy.
Thanks, Will. All right. A lot of Republicans whine and moan about illegal immigration and how it's sucking our country dry, but few have the intestinal fortitude to pull illegal aliens off the government taxpayer-funded teat. Well, guess who made the first move? It's time for Final Thoughts. So illegal aliens aren't just murdering Americans, they're sucking our tax dollars dry too. So while some may indeed be good people, it doesn't mean I'm ready to open my pocketbook so millions of people with no legal right to be here can go purse diving for their American dream. And I have a feeling many of you feel the same way. And while many elected Republicans claim to care about this phenomenon, many are too weak or lazy to do anything about it. Well, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is once again picking up their slack. Check this out. Last year, Governor DeSantis put in motion a multi-pronged crackdown on illegal immigration and those fostering it in his state. He signed a law directing hospitals who accept Medicaid, a taxpayer-funded entitlement program, to ask patients about their immigration status when they seek treatment. Now, patients are not forced to give an answer, but the mere asking of the question seems to be doing the trick. According to Politico, Florida's emergency medical assistance program for illegal aliens has seen a 54% dip in expenditures billed to Medicaid this year, with less than 2 months remaining in the fiscal year since this immigration law took effect. And get this, data provided to Politico by the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services show $148.4 million in state and federal Medicaid dollars went towards emergency coverage for non-citizens in Florida in the year before the state's new immigration law took effect. But since May, that number has plummeted to $67 million, with only a couple months left in the count. Now, important to note, federal law already bars illegals from Medicaid eligibility, though there are plenty of workarounds illegals take advantage of for emergency services, pregnancy, and dialysis. But this DeSantis initiative appears to be making a big dent. And for those clutching their pearls and bleeding hearts, sit down. There are American citizens who can't afford health care and are legit qualified for Medicaid. So granted, a lot of Americans abuse the system as it is. Why would we add millions of illegal aliens to that roster? Stop providing the carrot for these people to come here illegally and they will stop coming. It's really as simple as that. Republicans might not be able to secure the border on their own, but Republican governors with the will and the intestinal fortitude can make an impact and save us some hard-earned money in the process. So a tip of the hat to Florida and the leadership of Governor Ron DeSantis. All you other red state governors need to wake up and get to work. Those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow live at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching Tomi Lahren is Fearless. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you'll never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.